Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thanks so much for getting on this morning for our point in time count training. We're going to get started in just a minute or two, but in the meantime, we welcome you just to put your name and organization in the chat. We will be using the chat as folks have questions this morning during the presentation. I'm thinking a lot of you have already signed up in the point in time count volunteer portal, but if you have not had a chance to do that yet, in these couple minutes while we're getting going, great time to go ahead and do that. And I'm trying to put the link in the chat, but I'll get to that. And if you've already signed up in the volunteer portal, but you haven't downloaded the Counting Us app, maybe take a minute or two right now as we're getting started. You can go to your app store. You can see that blue circle with the checkbox logo, both iPhone and Androids. It's available for download for free. Lainey's showing it to you. Thanks, Lainey. And you can just download that app. So Cassie's put in the chat the link to sign up. And we will get started just in another minute or two, but we've still got folks coming on. Thanks for being here. Hi, everybody. It's Marianne. I'm going to repeat my message because we've got people still just coming in, which is awesome. So happy to see so many of you coming on this morning. Thanks for being here. We're going to get started with our pit count training just in another minute or two. In the meantime, we welcome you to use this window of time, put your name and organization in the chat. And I know a lot of you have already signed up in the volunteer portal for Counting Us. If you haven't had a chance to do that, the link's right there. Cassie, if you don't mind dropping it in the chat one more time, you can just go in there and sign up to volunteer for pit count. If you've already done that step, but you haven't downloaded the app, you could also use this minute or two to go to your app store or the Android store as well and download that Counting Us app for free. And we'll just get started in another minute or two. All right, I'm going to say my spiel one more time and then we'll kick it off. Those of you who've joined us this morning thinking this was the regular scheduled collaborative committee meeting, that meeting is actually not happening today. The second half of the meeting was going to be point in time count training. So we've bumped the point in time, having a little trouble. We've bumped the point in time count training to just start right at 10. If you've already attended a different session of the point in time count training, you get your morning back. Of course, you're welcome to stay. We love you all. But if you've already attended the point in time count training, you don't need to stay for this one. We will do point in time count training this morning. No collaborative committee meeting. There was some conversation about rescheduling that meeting for next Wednesday. Sarah and Christine, our lovely co-chairs, are on this morning, and the decision has been made in light of how full next week is and the big ask we are putting out to service providers for point in time count. We're going to skip a January collaborative committee meeting, and in February, we'll just be back to our regular collaborative committee meeting schedule. So this morning, point in time count training, no collaborative committee meeting in January, and we'll see y'all in February for collaborative committee meeting. If you've already attended a point in time count training, this content's going to be a repeat for you. If you haven't, we're delighted you're here. Happy to see familiar faces on today. You can see on this screen, we're inviting folks to put your name and organization in the chat. The link to sign up in the volunteer portal is there for point in time count, as well as once you've done that step, then you can download the app on your device where you'll actually be doing the surveys. So we're going to kick off our training this morning. Just to give you a heads up on who's talking today, Nathaniel Perez is going to share some information about the sheltered count. Lainey Kaplan's going to talk about principles of trauma-informed care. And then I'll wrap it up with the logistics on the when, where, why, and how we're doing point in time count. We did want you to have our email addresses. So if you have questions, you can always reach out. We also do want to let you know the chat is enabled, and we're happy to use that as a tool as part of this presentation. So if you've got a question, put it in the chat. One of us may just answer in the chat or unmute and share it, but definitely happy to have conversation. And this is really an opportunity for us to hear your questions and help share answers. And if you are wondering, there's probably somebody else on who's also wondering. So please feel free to ask. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Nate just to talk a little bit about our sheltered count. Nate, are you on and ready?
I'm on and ready. I'm so sorry. I had to
Perfect.
unmute myself.
It
Good
always
morning,
takes just a second.
everyone. I'm excited that everybody was able to make it today. Just a couple of things. As Marianne said, my name's Nathaniel Perez. I work with Homeless Alliance. My job is fairly new, but I have had a lot of experience in doing this type of work. So we're going to go through what I need from you guys in the sheltered part of it. So what this project or what projects are going to affect this is going to be street out or not street outreach. Emergency shelters are going to be participating. Entry, exit, emergency shelters, night by night, safe havens, transitional housing, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, permanent housing only, and permanent housing supportive or housing with services. So those are the ones that are going to be participating. And some of those we're going to be needing some data cleanup from you guys. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having a on Friday, if you can go to that next screen there, on Friday, we're going to be having some training on this stuff. So this is also going to be for non-participant HMIS agencies. So anybody who is non-participant in this is more than welcome to come. We are going to record it, but we do want you guys to come to at least, see what we're doing live. And that way, if you have any questions or anything like that, any concerns or something that you might not know or you just are not getting, we can get into it a little bit more. So you really know what you're doing. For the people who are not using HMIS, they're going to be sent something. So they're going to be sent either the the command center or the self-calculating pit tool. Either of those are going to be sent to you guys, and we're going to, help you with that. That's also, we're going to be doing some training on that. So if you need any training or anything like that, please reach out to me. I think my email should be on the slides or something like that. If not, I'm going to put my help desk email on the chat so you guys can get a hold of me that way as well. So other than that, it's just, having just giving that opportunity to kind of give you guys the training and the tools to really get what you need from this. We are really excited. But for our timeline, we are going to be doing on the 17th, we're going to be doing the training. On the 20th is we're going to be giving out that those tools to the non-participating agencies. On the 22nd is the date of pit count for the shelter. Okay. We are going to have office hours from the 24th to the 2 of 21 of 25. So it's going to be about one, two, three, four, five different times that we're going to be able to help you guys throughout that. And then our deadline for our agency submission is going to be 2/21/25. And that's when everything's going to be going in. We are going to still be, going through the reviews and all that, a couple weeks after that, but that's our deadline. And what that means is that we are going to be requesting from the people who are using HMIS to do some data cleanup. So by that time, we are going to request that your data is correct and submitted by 2/21/25. I do have if I can share my screen here. Can you guys see all this?
Sorry, I think I have to stop sharing and then you share.
Awesome. Did that work?
Nope. Oh, I'm only seeing faces.
Is
I
it
see
the
a
what is
screen.
the PIT and HIC housing inventory count?
Yep.
Yep, then
So you
we're
guys
able
see
to
that?
see it on
All
our
right.
end, yeah.
So this right here is what we're going to be sending you. This is going to give you all the information. See, it says data collection and reporting. We're going to ask all agencies. We'll confirm two pieces of data for each project, person served and project data or project descriptor and bed inventory information. This is going to be sent to you because it's going to have HMIS project data elements, PDDE. It's going to give you these informations and all of this stuff, our help desk. All of this is going to be given to you guys and emailed out to you as well. So this is something that we are happy to help you with in any way. So other than that, I'm all done. Again, my name's Nathaniel Perez, and I'm happy that you guys all made it today.
Awesome. Thank you, Nathaniel. Looking at that previous slide with all the logos, I'm like, we have so many partners doing so much great work. And from a sheltering standpoint, that's a really big undertaking to coordinate the data, just like getting that clean and submitted and coordinated. So Nathaniel, thanks so much for being here today. Thanks for the work
Thank
you're
you.
doing. And service providers who are on this call who are helping with that portion. Awesome. Way to go. Cool. So the rest of our time together is going to be focused on the unsheltered pit count. And the training today is going to really look at why do we do pit count? What's the purpose? Why is it important? And we'll talk about some principles, looking at principles of trauma-informed care, and then just the nuts and bolts of how are we going to pull this off. So Lainey, I'm going to turn it over for you to talk about those first two.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad that we're all here. This is such an awesome opportunity. And I'm really excited to get to count our folks that have for so long kind of gone unseen. So this is going to be really great. Um, I want to talk about the importance of the pit count, kind of as I just said. It is a way of recognizing and finding our folks that often go unseen. So in order for us to do all of this, we have to go out into areas that people are at or may not be. We're going to be looking around and we're going to figure out how many folks in our community need support. This pit count can help us establish the dimension of the problem of homelessness in our area. And that way we can it can help us advocate with policymakers and program administrators to get funding and to track the things that we're doing and the support that we're giving. It also helps us understand a little bit of the trauma that our folks are experiencing just in having conversations with them, getting out there and being, boots on the ground and chatting with people and getting to know their story. So like I said, it justifies kind of the why we do what we do. I think a lot of us, we do what we do because we love it. So we don't necessarily need the why, but it is important when it comes to funding and all of those things. So just making sure that we can count all of those people and that they're seen, and then we can understand what their needs are a little bit more. I want to talk a little bit about this picture because I think it's absolutely wonderful and it kind of segues us into our trauma-informed care training a little bit. group of people, really awesome going out. And you can see kind of under the bridge, there's some folks maybe hanging out there. And I think one of the beautiful things is that the team is kind of separating so that we don't overwhelm the individual, because at the end of the day, we are approaching their space, their homes. And so we want to make sure that we're cognizant of that. But you can actually see one of my coworkers, Justin, he's just walking right on in there, ready to go and say hi and get the ball rolling. So this is exactly what we're going to be doing. This may be what it looks like. So just being mindful that these numbers aren't just numbers, they're also people. These are people that matter. And that's our job, is to show them that they matter and that we see them and we want to help and provide as much as we can. So I will go to the next slide, or if somebody could go to the next slide for me, that would be great. So trauma-informed care. I think a lot of us probably have a baseline of what trauma-informed care is. It's implemented in a lot of the work we do already, but basically just ensuring that we do no harm, or we don't add any more harm to the folks that we're serving's lives. And I think it also comes with a big piece is like checking ourselves first and making sure that we're in the space to meet people where they are at. So I'm looking at my notes too. If I'm looking down, y'all, that's why. And you probably couldn't tell because my glasses anyways. But so we all understand that trauma is a universal experience that people have, and it's the aftermath of an experience that was really hard for a person to manage. So everybody has trauma. We all do. It's all there. And so we just need to be cognizant that when we're approaching our people who are living on the streets, that in and of itself is a trauma. Chronic homelessness is a serious trauma that I'm sure a lot of us know, a lot of our people are dealing with, and it definitely changes the way that our brains function and respond to things. So kind of our next slide. It's kind of a weird drawing, and if you're not into the drawing, you don't need to look at it. It's totally fine. But basically what it's saying is that folks who are experiencing homelessness, they often have the frontal cortex of their brain, their amygdala is usually a much larger, and that puts them in that kind of fight or flight response. And so when and if we meet people out in the community where they're at, we're going to come across folks whose amygdalas are enlarged. And so they're responding in a way that they know how to. And to us, that may seem scary and big and like a lot of feelings. And I think it's just really important to recognize that these folks, in order to meet them where they're at, sometimes we have to just understand that they are living in that fight or flight or freeze moment. And how do we approach that? So I think really just the big thing is kindness. If we go to the next step here, we talk about a little bit, there's lots of examples to talk about the prefrontal cortex and folks being escalated and how to de-escalate situations. So this example is the guard dog versus the professor. So that the escalations would be the guard dog. So when those folks are feeling threatened or feeling harmed, or they have like an example, the picture that I showed where that whole group of folks is going to that camp. If all of those people approach the front of that tent and was like, hey, hi, good morning, that can be pretty overwhelming. And folks could assume that it's maybe police or it's somebody that they don't want to have contact with or that they're being bombarded. And I think any of us can understand what that's like, especially, like if you've ever been woken up in the middle of the night suddenly by anything, it's very scary, and you kind of have that fight or flight for a second until you're able to orient where you're at. So that guard dog is who we're going to see. Sometimes it's going to be like the angry yelling, big gestures, big posturing, all that kind of stuff. We're going to see a lot of that because our folks, we have to remember, are in that fight or flight. And then just trying to reach the professor in their brain. So knowing that they have the ability to sit and think and make choices, but they're just not going to be able to do that or maybe make the best choices when they're in that fight or flight. So reaching that professor part of their brain once they're comfortable with you, and that comes in rapport and just time and the conversations that we'll all have, but really just trying to get them, I don't want to say calm down because I don't necessarily think they need to calm down, but to better understand what they're feeling and maybe why, and then approach it that way. So the next slide kind of has some a little bit more about that, just being the hyperactive dog, you know, the yelling, people are going to be probably cranky because it's rainy, it's cold, it's dark all the time, it feels like. So people are going to be upset, and that's totally valid, especially if they've been out in the cold all night. So just really trying to reach that other part of their brain that isn't panicking. And then the next slide will have a few little details. So some ways that you can de-escalate situations. And they say in the first 5 seconds, and I think it's kind of ongoing, but truly just slowing down, really making sure that you have the time and the ability to be where you're at, and you're willing to give that time to another person, I think is really important. And people recognize that. People know if you're in a hurry or if you don't want to be there. And that's why I think it's wonderful that we're all here, because we all want to be here. And so people are they're gonna feed off of that. And I think that instantly helps kind of step back from that scary dog. And then introducing yourself, say, hi, I'm Lainey. It's really nice to meet you. Good morning. That is huge. Asking for their name is huge, because a lot of the times, again, they go so unseen that folks don't even ask their name. They make larger assumptions. And so just to ask their name, get to know them, you know, ask what their story is. People are willing to share. And then, so less public. So just, I think the biggest thing is sometimes these conversations can be pretty serious. They can be um, really intense parts of people's lives that they may not want to share with everybody. That's understandable. So ensuring that you're in a space where you can talk to them safely and making sure that they're comfortable to want to talk to you. I know that can be hard in some areas when you're surrounded by folks, but just really trying to make sure and kind of read the space of like, is this person comfortable talking to me? Would they maybe be more comfortable if we went like a little bit down the street away from this person who they're fighting with, or X, Y, or Z, you know? The 16-degree stance, this is basically just, I think the biggest thing is to not make anybody feel like they're blocked in, or just, you know, really approach it with, you're comfortable, you're here, you're ready to go. They're not gonna, body language is a big thing for our folks that are out on the street. And so they'll recognize if you have any kind of tension or nervousness within you. And that's totally fine to have, but I think the intent behind it is just the difference. So yeah, just being cognizant of like how you're standing, where you're standing, and all of those things to make sure that you are safe and the other person is safe and comfortable and can exit if they need to or want to. And then giving full attention, again, just being there, being present. I think it's kind of an awesome thing that we get to do this during work, which not a lot of people get to do. And some folks are volunteering, which is awesome and wonderful. And thank you, thank you. But we do have the ability to give our full attention, and that matters. It matters so much to the people that are out there that don't get that. So I just want to remind everybody again, just be kind, be present, and just know that what you're doing is really making a difference. And so these people, it matters to them, and they see that and they respect that. So the next slide, I just want to talk about safety again. So don't stand in front of people's tents, doorways, block all those things, you know, the normal stuff. But just remaining alert. So make sure if you are in a camp, make sure that you kind of pay attention to your surroundings, ensure that nothing seems weird. If you have a gut instinct, please follow that gut instinct. If you feel unsafe, please stop doing what you're doing and make sure that you can get to safety. Just staying with your team is part of that big safety thing, right? So just don't go off on your own and think that, you know, you're going to conquer the world by yourself. If you want to do that, please try. I'm here for that, but maybe just not during this. Yeah, just stay with your team, stay together. And that way you guys can really count on each other for safety. And then also just, it's good to have someone there in case you hear a really sad story and you need to debrief it for a minute. Remember, you're the guest. We are going into their home, into their space, into the place that they have built that is as safe as it's going to be for them. So just a reminder, if you're going to go out, just don't just barge into tents. Don't just do things that you wouldn't do at anybody else's home. I've had people ask me to take shoes off. So, things, just be respectful and mindful. Dressing for the weather is huge. We know that it's freezing cold out. It's wet. It's muddy. It's gross. Welcome to Oregon. just make sure if you've got boots, wear boots. Waterproof stuff is great. If you don't have any of that, I usually do. When I do outreach, I usually just do jeans and some rubber boots, and I'm good because I just want to make sure that my feet don't get wet and icky. And then again, that bottom one is listen to your gut. Really do that. Your gut, it's if it's trying to tell you something, you should definitely listen. I think that that's gotten a lot of people to where they need to be during this. So I think that's great. And then review your volunteer manual. So just make sure to review all of that information. If you have questions, please ask. We're all very happy to answer. And then the last one, I think, and this is one of the biggest ones, is promises. We cannot make promises to these folks that we are not going to keep. They're used to that. Systems have continuously let these folks down. And I think as a social worker, right, we have a lot of history of hurting and causing harm to folks who have tried to access services. So just knowing that and changing the way that we view and do the things we do. So don't promise housing, don't promise a tent, don't promise, X, Y, or Z unless you absolutely can make that happen. And a lot of the times, I think in this short amount of time when we're meeting with folks, we're not going to have a whole lot of time to make a whole lot of promises about X, Y, or Z. But just ensuring that you say what you can do, because that also matters to folks, because I would hate it too if the people that were supposed to help me kept lying to me or promising things and then falling through, because that ruins the rapport that we have with these folks. And that rapport is so, so, so important. So just gaining the trust, building that rapport, talking to people, being kind. I don't think any of you are going to have any problems with any of that. But with that, I will kind of wrap it up and pass it on to Marianne, unless anybody has questions. I think I've got maybe a few minutes for some questions, and then we'll kind of hop back on.
Yeah, definitely want to invite folks. I'm looking at people who are on and familiar names. Several of you, I'm sure many of you have attended plenty of training on trauma-informed principles
Oh, yes.
and could lead this training. We did really want to start the unsheltered pit count training here with these reminders about trauma-informed principles. So important and so appreciative of Lainey for highlighting them. But do just want to take a minute or two. A lot of you have done point in time count before. A lot of you have a great deal of insight here. If there's something that you're like, oh, as Lainey was talking about this, it reminded me of, this thought or this idea or this that might help others who are about to go do pit count. Just want to take a minute, share a thought, hear a comment, ask a question. Feel free.
Yes, please. I've done the pit count a few times, and so I've any questions would be awesome. But if not, I understand that too. My email is also there and available if anybody wants to email me separately. I'm always happy to go get coffee and chat with folks and figure out how we can continue to support each other through the work that we do. So
I'll just wait a second in case someone has something they want to share or ask. Check in the chat. Lainey, great tips and reminders. Got comments in the chat with love and appreciation for your great thoughts and comments. All right. Anyone with a comment or question, this is your moment. If you think of it in a second, put it in the chat. Okay, we're moving on here to the logistics piece. So mine is like the second grade questions, like who, what, where, when, why, and how. So when is the pit count in Marion and Polk counties for 2025? The dates, the night of our count is January 22nd. So that is Wednesday, 1 week from today. I know, oh my goodness, it's coming. And then that opens our data gathering window starting Thursday morning, and we can talk to folks for a full week. So we're counting, as Nate mentioned with the sheltered count, the data that you're submitting for the sheltered count is going to be who stayed in your shelter the night of January 22nd. And then the unsheltered count, we're going to be asking people, where did you sleep? Wednesday, January 22nd. So we're intentionally front loading that week of data gathering in the first couple days. So Thursday morning, we're going to have outreach teams out saying, where'd you sleep last night? Friday morning, people are going to be saying, where did you sleep Wednesday night? Saturday, Sunday, the whole week, we're going to be asking, where did you sleep Wednesday, January 22nd? So we've got the 23rd to the 29th to gather data about where people slept on January 22nd. We have organized our point in time count by jurisdictions, and there's a lead for each of these regions. And I'm just going to show those to you because these are your folks. If you're like, hey, I'm in Kaiser and I've got a question, or I'm in rural Polk County, or I'm in Silverton, then you can see this is the person who's coordinating the efforts in your area. And it's been so wonderful to work with these amazing people because they have local relationships with service providers, with law enforcement, with people experiencing homelessness. And we've kind of said, you know, across Marion and Polk, here's how we're going to do the point in time count. But you know, what's going to work the best in the urban hub is different than what's going to work the best in the rural parts of our counties. And so these jurisdictional leads have really guided, like, what should the point in time count look like in my area? And I'm just like so appreciative of their efforts and plans. The point in time count, the unsheltered count, is conducted by doing surveys. So we're going to go talk to people and say, where did you sleep the night of January 22nd? And then here's a bunch of other stuff we want to ask you too. And there's 3 settings where we're going to do those surveys. As Lainey was talking with the picture of the bridge, that's the first setting, and that is through outreach. So yes, we're going to have folks going out into camps, into the street, walking across the counties and talking to people. And you can certainly sign up to help in that setting. We need you. We welcome you. The second setting is at events. So with the outreach, we're going out to where folks are, and then we're also hosting events where we invite them to come in. And some of those events are meal sites. Rural Polk County is doing a big Saturday winter resource event. Some of those are food banks. Oak Park Church on Lancaster hosts a wellness table. So at those event sites where folks are coming in to connect with resources, to get a meal, to get a shower, we will have point in time count volunteers who are ready to do a survey there. So if you're saying, hey, my service, I work for a service provider and we're doing an event during point in time count, I want to volunteer there and be ready to do surveys, but I'm nervous to sign up to be a pit count volunteer because I think you're going to assign me to go do an outreach shift and that's not what I want to do. Don't worry. In the volunteer portal, you can say, I'm going to volunteer at host's event. I'm going to volunteer at the Salem Housing Authority share event. Great. But you still need to download the app so you can do the survey. The third setting is that you can do surveys with folks who are already working with your program. They might be on your caseload, they might be on your waiting list. I'm so happy to see Linnell and Doug on today thinking about the services your organizations provide. You may have folks that are on a waiting list, folks that you're working with and supporting, but they may not actually be in your shelter the night of Wednesday, January 22nd. So the opportunity to connect with them on Thursday or Friday and say, hey, you're on our wait list. Do you still want to be on the wait list? How are you doing? And do you have a few minutes I can do the survey with you? We have found in the past that completing the point in time count with people who are sleeping in their cars is very challenging because the outreach teams are unlikely to find them. They don't want to be found. And so if you have a relationship with a family sleeping in their car and you have the opportunity, you know, if they come in to receive services or you have contact information to conduct a point in time count interview with them is really important for our community to have that information. And quite frankly, we're unlikely to find them in other ways. So again, if you're saying, hey, I can help with point in time count, but I don't have a 4-hour shift to go out and walk, you could do surveys in any of these 3 settings. So outreach, at an event, and then also just as part of your normal workday as you are interacting with folks experiencing homelessness. Okay, so then how we are using an app. It's called Counting Us. You can just download it right onto your phone. You have to sign up in the volunteer portal first. Then you get an email that says, hey, thanks for signing up, and make your password. Then you take your email and your password and log in on Counting Us. So hopefully you're tracking along with these steps. You signed up in the volunteer portal. If you have already downloaded the app, or you did it while I'm talking, or you're going to do it right now, cool. Open it up, because the last thing you want to do is Thursday morning when you are talking to somebody and you're like, awesome, this person just gave consent, said, yes, I'd be willing to do a point in time count survey. And then you're like, oh, wait, I haven't downloaded the app. Oh, I downloaded it while Marianne was talking, but I haven't even looked at it. And so what do I do? And how do I get in here? And how do I start asking the questionnaire? So download it ahead of time, download it now. If you've got it, open it, just start clicking through. And don't worry that you can mess anything up, because we're in a pre-count mode. So you can like pretend you're doing surveys, and then when we actually are ready to start, everything we've done in practice and exploring will delete. And on Thursday, the 23rd in the morning, we'll start for real. So you can mess around in it all you want this week. One of the great things about Counting Us is that it has a GPS feature. So it captures the exact location of each survey interaction. So when you're thinking about those 3 settings where the surveys are completed for outreach, this is really beneficial because we can see exactly where that conversation happened. With the events, then that's going to show, a whole bunch of people interviewed at Oak Park Church or at the Polk County Fairgrounds where they're hosting their resource event. So we did add some questions asking about where they stayed. So if you're doing an interview with somebody who's on your waiting list, you can ask at the end, okay, you mentioned you slept in your car, but where was that? In Salem? Was that in Kaiser? So that the GPS will capture where the interview happened, and then we'll also have an opportunity to add that for those situations. I do want to mention that when you're out doing point in time count surveys, there are parts of our county without great cell service. But do not worry, you can complete the survey, save it as a draft, and then when you're back where there's connection, you can upload it. And the system, I don't know how, I was like, oh, really? It can? It will still record where you were, not where you uploaded it, but where you did the survey. So once you get into the app, your first screen, and you can see the yellow bar that highlights the pre-count mode. So safe to mess around, explore, click a bunch of buttons, totally fine. There's 3 blue bars there, and the first one is the unsheltered person survey. 99% of our point in time count surveys are going to happen through that one. So you're going to click on the unsheltered person survey, and the first 3 questions are kind of housekeeping questions that are just going to come up, boom, boom, boom. The first is language, and you're going to click English or Spanish. If you do that right now, you're going to see that the Spanish translation is about 90% complete. We're working on it. So yep, it's coming. And then I also want you to know the Pacific Islander population is a really important demographic here in Marion and Polk counties. And we're partnering with the Micronesian Island Community, community-based organization, and they are also doing a translation of this survey. It's in the works. Unfortunately, the app does not support those. It actually doesn't support any languages beyond English and Spanish. So the Micronesian Island community will have that in hard copy. They are doing outreach. But if you come across a person that you're talking to and they would prefer to do it in Chuukese or Marshallese, let your jurisdictional lead know and we'll help make that connection. The second housekeeping question is, are you talking to an individual or a family, a household with more than one person? If you click individual, the survey just will go through for that one person. If you click family or household, then it asks how many people, and it will go through, you'll go through with the first person, and then you'll go through again for the others. And I feel like in past years, we've done a really good job engaging with the person we're talking to. But if there is a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old that you see, we want to also be able to count that person. And if there's a 10-year-old who's at school or a household member who's at work, you can, from the one person you're talking to, collect information about that household. And that helps us get more complete information. So on that second question, it just looks like a really quick housekeeping one, but please do ask, how many people are in your household? And can I ask you about your whole group of everybody who's staying with you? And the third question is, have you already done the survey? So we're collecting data for a whole week. And on Thursday, an outreach team might talk to somebody who will be at an event on Friday or Tuesday. And part of my job is to deduplicate the data. We don't want someone to have to go through the survey 10 times. That's a headache. So when you get to this question, you're just going to ask like, this is the point in time count survey. We're asking questions about where you slept the other night. Did you already do this survey? And if somebody's like, oh, yeah, I totally did, then just thank them so much for being willing, wish them a good day, but you don't have to take them through the survey again. So let's not interview the same person multiple times if we can help it. Okay, I'm going to pick up my pace a little bit because I know we scheduled this training 10 to 10:45. I will give you a heads up that those of us who are presenting today are planning to stay on till 11 to answer any questions you may have. So we're going to kind of wrap up the full group part in the next couple minutes. But if you have questions, if you want to stay on, we'll be on till at least 11. Okay, one of the most important questions in the survey is, where did you sleep on Wednesday, January 22nd? You can see in the left column the responses. If somebody gives, those are the responses where the survey will continue. The bottom one that I've highlighted in italics, that couch surfing response, we are continuing the survey this year for people who are couch surfing or doubled up. I know you're like, but wait, that the HUD definition is different and they've never let us continue with that before. You are correct. The HUD definition for unsheltered does not include couch surfing. And so we're going to continue the interview this year because that information is important for us locally to make decisions and understand the reality of homelessness here. But when we prepare the report to send to HUD, we will filter those folks out and they will not be part of our unsheltered report. So if you are thinking about folks like on your case list or folks that are coming in to talk to you, we do want you to conduct the interview with the couch surfing and the doubled up folks, more of a McKinney-Vento definition, because that's a really important part of our understanding. So the surveys will continue this year and then they'll be filtered out. The second column, the survey ends. I'm so glad Nate was able to be on today because we are capturing information. Those people are included in our point in time count. They're just included on the sheltered side. So people who stayed in an emergency shelter or transitional housing program, their information that's already in HMIS or being recorded by service providers, that's all going to come in to Nate and his team. And so again, if somebody's like, oh, well, I stayed at Safe Sleep United, or I stayed at Family Promise, or I stayed at Church of the Park on Wednesday night, we're going to be like, oh, we don't need to keep doing the whole interview, but so glad that you were in a safe and stable place. And, then you can have a conversation, but you don't need to do the survey because the information about those folks is going to be captured on the sheltered count side. I do want to give you a heads up that as you get to the end of the interview, for people who are 18 and up, you do see a series of questions about a substance use disorder, a chronic health condition, a mental health disorder. We've added some examples. You don't have to read them, but that's to give you a little bit more information. And if people are asking you, like, does this count or does this mean this, that you have a sense of what those do mean. I know the first time I did a point in time count interview, when I came to these questions, I kind of had to gather my courage because they're personal. So before I ask these, I just say, the next set of questions is pretty personal. You can skip any of these. If there's one you don't want to answer, you just say you want to skip it. That's fine. HUD has asked us to include these. Well, they require us to include these questions. But anybody who prefers to skip them may. The survey is voluntary and answering each question is voluntary, but want you to know those are coming. The last thing I'll say as part of the official part of this training is that we do include this year the option to do an unsheltered person observation. So if you are out and there's someone you're like, hey, here's a person, it's Thursday morning, they clearly were unsheltered last night in our county, but for one reason or another, they're not in a place to have this conversation with me. I've invited it, they've declined, but we still want them to be counted. There is an option to do an unsheltered person observation. We are only gathering that data on the first 2 days of our window. We don't want someone, counted multiple times and every day. So just at the beginning, and the notes are required. So if 1% of the time you're like, oh, here's a person that needs to be counted, but for one reason or another, I can't do the survey. You can switch over to this, put in the information you can see. I'm going to, again, be the person deduplicating. So please give me enough that I can be like, oh, Thursday morning in this spot, someone talked to someone wearing a green coat with this dog, or, and Thursday afternoon, we got the same thing. So know that this is to be used sparingly, but in an effort to get meaningful data, we are including it this year. Okay, sign up in the portal, download the app. You did training this morning. Yay, there is a training on Tuesday at noon. If you have, your coworker in the desk next to you, you're like, hey, show up on Tuesday at noon for training. That would be great. And on the Homeless Alliance website, we've collected a bunch of information about point in time count. So that's all there. And once you sign up through the volunteer portal, the communication will come from your jurisdictional lead about when and where to show up. So if you sign up and say, I'm volunteering at my employer's event, or I'm going to do surveys with people I come across in my normal workday, great. But if you're like, hey, I want to do outreach, you should be hearing from your jurisdictional lead about when and where to meet. We will have supplies. So when you show up to meet, you'll be able to get a collection of things you can give to anybody as you open the conversation. And then there'll be some other things you can give to folks who do the survey. Whew. Okay, I'm seeing some things in the chat. I do just want to primarily thank you for coming today. If you're like, okay, I blocked off 10 to 10:45 because that what you told me, I'll make it easy for you to sign off and move on with what you've got. And then I'm looking at the chat. Question from Mark. It looks like temperatures will be below 30 next Wednesday. Warming shelters will be open. Yes, so when the temperatures dip below 32, our warming shelters activate. And that's something that we have been discussing. If the warming shelters are open the night of our count, which is January 22nd, then those folks count as sheltered. If the warming centers, and our warming centers collect information about the folks who come. If the warming shelters are open on Thursday night or Friday night, we have the opportunity for volunteers to go to the warming center and say, where did you sleep on Wednesday night? So if they're closed on Wednesday and I slept in my car, but they're open on Thursday night and I go to the warming center, someone can do the pit count survey with me at the warming center on Thursday about where I slept on Wednesday. So Mark, that's a really important thing. I confess, have not totally figured out what that looks like. And part of it is the challenges of the, if it's open or if it's closed. But it does look like, it looks likely either the night of the 22nd or some of the nights during our data gathering window that the warming centers will be open. So we do need to make sure that we have kind of a team ready to respond. If it's open the night of the count, then Nathaniel, that's going to come through you as part of the sheltered count. Okay, other questions? Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. We will post the slides. Yes, thanks, Linnell, for that good suggestion. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'll mute myself.